Hello, this is James P. White from 95.7 Cruise FM. Welcome to a special edition of the Jedi Jimmy podcast. This is actually episode number 35, and I'm breaking down the tales of the Jedi. Now, it's 6 animated shorts that they did, short films that range anywhere between 18 minutes and 14 minutes, so very short animated films. So cool. I'm going to do a quick breakdown of the whole spiel, but these are so cool. So with these 6 shorts, what they did is they broke down, gave us a little bit both of a backstory and of 2 main Jedi. So Count Dooku and how he turned to the dark side, and also Ahsoka Tano. There's a lot of really cool things that happened in these episodes, and we learn what happened to Yaddle. I'll get into that in a minute. First, we start out, the very first episode is actually called Life or Death. It starts out with the birth of Ahsoka Tano. Her mother, her name was Pav T. Now, they skip ahead a year, so she's about a year old. Her mom takes her on a hunt, but the tiger there kidnaps Ahsoka while on the hunt, and when the tiger was about to eat her, she actually was able to touch the tiger's head and connect with him through the Force, and he was able to take her back to her family safely. I thought that was really cool, because then the medicine woman of the village said the reason why this happened is she's a Jedi. So obviously after that, they took her to the Jedi Temple where she began training. Thought that was a really cool start of this series. Now, the next episode is called Justice. Now, this one involves Count Dooku when he was actually, when Qui-Gon Jinn was his apprentice. So, now, the people on this planet, they kidnapped the son of the senator. During this whole episode, we find about the corruption of the Senate and how a lot of the senators, they were very about themselves, stealing from the people to make sure that they're rich and all that kind of stuff. So, in the fight, in the conflict, Count Dooku almost ended up killing the senator using the Force. It was at this point that I think that he started on the path to the dark side, especially with seeing the corruption of the Senate and all of that. And he started using a lot of anger. But Qui-Gon said something that was really cool to his master. He said that he was focused on the here and now. Why? That's how he became a little more in tune as to what was going on. And if you remember from Star Wars: A Phantom Menace, he said the exact same thing to Obi-Wan Kenobi, was focused on the here and now, not the future or the past. And that was from Phantom Menace while they were on the droid control ship. Now, see, the thing is how it came to be that Count Dooku started to turn is he was focused on his anxieties and fear, which led him to the dark side. Now, episode 3 was called Choices. Now, this one, again, involves Count Dooku and Mace Windu. So, they are sent to Raxus Secundus to bring back the body of Master Katri. She was sent there to protect the senator, but she also was a member of the Jedi Council. Now, one thing we learn at this point, in which we know a lot about Mace, is he was all about following the rules, following the traditions. Whereas Count Dooku liked to question and
determine things for himself. And remember, in Phantom Menace, Yoda actually said the same thing about Qui-Gon, is that he liked to question, he liked to test, and make sure he's doing the right thing rather than just follow orders. So in the investigation of the death of Master Katri, they realized that it was the security personnel that killed Katri, and in this fight, Count Dooku was a lot more aggressive than a Jedi should be, and again, another step on his path to the dark side. At this point, at the end of the episode, Mace Windu was actually given the seat on the Jedi Council that was left with the death of Master Katri. Now, the fourth episode, this one is really heavy. It's called The Sith Lord. Now, what happens here is Count Dooku, it starts out where he's in the Jedi archive, and he actually deletes Kamino from the Jedi archive, but under the name of Sifo Dyas, a Jedi Master that went missing. That, again, as we mentioned earlier, like in Attack of the Clones, he was the one that supposedly ordered the clone army. Now, in this episode, this actually takes place during and after the Phantom Menace. So this one here, Qui-Gon Jinn first encounters Darth Maul on Tatooine when they're going to try and get Anakin. Now, the Jedi Council actually meeting with Qui-Gon discussed the encounter, and what it is they don't see it as much of a threat, that it can't be the Sith, and so it's kind of pushed away. They didn't send enough Jedi to Tatooine. Now, after the death of Qui-Gon, Count Dooku stands at the Great Tree in the courtyard of the Jedi Temple. Now, the Great Tree is a very important tree. It's actually a very force-sensitive tree, and it had some great significance to Qui-Gon because it was alive, and he grew up on Coruscant, and he's never seen a tree because it's a planet that's just all buildings. Now, Yaddle was very concerned about Count Dooku's frame of mind, that she actually followed him when he left the temple. But he actually left the temple and went to a tower in which he was meeting with Darth Sidious. And so again, this is just after Phantom Menace. So she follows, and it was at this episode that Yaddle, Master Yaddle, is killed by Count Dooku. Now, if you don't know who Master Yaddle is, she was actually a Jedi that was on the Jedi Council in the Phantom Menace. She was sitting in the council chamber. She was the same race as Yoda, just like female. Now, the battle between Count Dooku and Yaddle was very intense. Count Dooku, again, his main lightsaber form is Form 2, which is like the fencing form, and Master Yaddle's form was actually the same as Yoda's, which is Form 4, which involves a lot of jumping and fancy stuff. This episode ends with actually Count Dooku taking her head, and then Darth Sidious makes him his apprentice. One cool thing about this is this episode, like with Master Yaddle, she was actually voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard. She is the son of Ron Howard, or daughter of Ron Howard, and she was a director in a few of the Mandalorian series as well. Now, episode 5 is Practice Makes Perfect. So it actually starts out in the Jedi Temple where Ahsoka is in the temple and she's being tested on her ability to be able to fight and defend against destroyer droids using special remotes in a protective shield. And she did actually defeat these droids or remotes. But Anakin wasn't quite satisfied with that. But there's some significance to this part of the episode because we actually see some references and see a young version of Caleb Doom, or as we know him from the Rebels, Kanan Jarrus. He was there with his master. So what happened is he wanted to give her a different test. So he took her and she had to defend against clone troopers and be able to defend. They had it on their blasters on stun the whole way through, and it took a lot of her going down and getting back up. But she actually realized that the best way that she could defend by clone troopers, because they think they don't just react like droids do. That's when she switched to using the two lightsabers like she does, and in using the form of Gemso, which is form 5, just a facet of it, she was actually able to stand her own. The cool thing about it is actually Anakin basically taught her how to survive Order 66, and he didn't even know that was coming at that point. Now the final episode is pretty cool. So Ahsoka has left the Jedi Order, like she survived Order 66. She's on a planet, and she ends up saving someone with the Force. She's trying to hide from being a Jedi, but she is called out for being one. But before this point, we actually do see Ahsoka at Padme's funeral, and then she meets up with Senator Organa, who gave her a special communicator if she needed help or wanted to join the rebellion. So to make a long story short, they send a Inquisitor to the planet that she's on. He's actually a really cool looking Inquisitor because not only does he have the double-bladed lightsaber, but he has this cool skull mask. I thought that was awesome. Now, with this, so she's the people that were there that survived, she took them to, she called Bail Organa, and it was at this point that she started as part of the rebellion, and she went by the name Fulcrum, which we make reference to a lot in the Rebels series, and you can see that if you ever watch the series. But she actually, when she defeated the Inquisitor, she used his lightsaber. She didn't have hers at that time. So I think that she rebuilt her lightsabers using the crystals, the Kyber crystals from the Sith lightsaber, because in order to get the lightsaber red, they actually have to force all their hate into it, and it's kind of breaks it. But you can also do the reverse and heal the Kyber crystal, but it will no longer take a color. So that's where she gets the white lightsabers from, which she uses in the Rebels series as well as going forward into the Ahsoka Tano series. I really loved these episodes. It was a lot of fun watching them, and I look forward to seeing you next week when I actually do the next episode of Andor. I do a breakdown of that. And I do need to thank my sponsors. First of all, the Dean Blundell Network on deanblundell.com, and my buddy Army Chris for teaching me all the skills I need to do this podcast. May the Force be with you, always.